AM590, The Answer.
Welcome to C-Vine News. You're listening to The Truth with your host, Linda Forsythe, and the man with the coolest name in radio, Pimpy.
Welcome back to C-Vine, We the People on KTIE AM 590. I'm Linda Forsythe, and I have my co-host, Pimpy. Wow, Pimpy, I mean, there is a lot going on in Wisconsin lately. It's just kind of mind-blowing, everything that's happening.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a little crazy right now with this Rittenhouse trial right now. There's definitely a lot of sneaky things, but we shouldn't be surprised about what's going on.
Well, the thing is, it's one thing after another that is causing a domino effect. And there is one thing with all of these various riots or the violent uprisings happening in various different states and counties around the U.S. for various different reasons. There is one common denominator that I have yet to hear one person bring up. And that is, where is the county sheriff where these are happening? On every single circumstance, whether the police are told to stand down or whatever the case is, the county sheriff in that area does not have to listen to any bureaucracy at the top. We, the people, are the ones that elected them. And yet not once in any of these situations in in Washington State, in Oregon, in Minnesota, and now in this situation in Kenosha County, the Kenosha County Sheriff is David Beth. Where was he in 2020 when these riots were happening and all this upheaval was going on?
It's around. Well, this name gets tossed around a lot, and I'm going to bring it up. George Soros. Now, see, Soros has learned something real quick. You can't just get behind certain politicians and push your agenda. He's now gotten involved with local and state level elections, including sheriff's elections. So what you want to do is do a little digging and figure out which sheriffs are indeed have been supported in their elections, because he's done state attorney elections. He's done, our senators, our Congress people. He's been behind funding a lot of these elections. So when this guy pays these outrageous donations to these elections, I would imagine that some of these people might feel a little obligated to push whatever nonsense this guy's asking for.
Well, that may very well be, and that could be the case. Or we have sheriffs that just are not constitutional. Because if you look in Wisconsin, I mean, we have, like I just mentioned, David Beth of Kenosha County, who basically had his head in the sand, and Sheriff Mack even basically said the same thing, that he does not believe he's a constitutional sheriff. But on a county just next to him, there was Sheriff Christopher Schmalling from Racine County.
Yes.
Where Forsythe Broadcasting just did an entire thing on him, where he did an investigation into the 2020 election and found a number of various violations. In fact, he stated the election law was not just broken, but shattered by the Wisconsin Election Commission. And he took an entire year in investigating because of the mother of one of the patients in a nursing home. It was Ridgewood Nursing Home there in Racine County that had passed on. She had severe dementia. And the daughter looked into it and found out that she had voted in the election. And after the sheriff did additional checking, found out that it was actually mandated that the nursing staff could fill out the ballots for the patients, even in this case that they were had dementia.
Oh, and they were allowed to assume who they might have voted for. That's the other fun part of that.
Well,
you know what I like to see Sheriff Mack do? and I don't know how he feels about this, but I think it's time we start figuring out which sheriffs are there to uphold and protect our constitutions and which ones are not, and start letting the people know. Because we don't want those individuals in there who have any kind of biasness or who are corrupt or who are compromised. That's the same with the politicians, but the sheriffs really have a lot of power. I would love to see a list of those sheriffs who are not upholding our constitutions and let the locals know about this.
Oh, that's for sure. That would be actually, that's an excellent, excellent idea. You know, what's interesting is when we talk about Right Side Broadcast, they just put something out where it says Wisconsin lawmaker moves to decertify the Wisconsin 2020 election results. Now, this is all basically a lot of what Sheriff Christopher Schmalling had investigated upon, along with other things that they found out. So again, the sheriff is the one that makes his own decision. He cannot be told to stand down.
And we're seeing a lot of police officers, a lot of different investigational groups being told to stand down or be less than honest. How about that? Okay. We know there's a lot of corruption out there. We know a lot of people are compromised or being bribed. Whatever is going on, just so you are aware, it's not just here in our country, it's worldwide. I do pay attention to the news all around. We're seeing the same things happen in other countries. So I'm not sure what's the best way to label this. I told everybody this looks, you could go to the Great Reset website and you could see that this definitely looks like the push to push everybody into the Great Reset. So this is not surprising to me, I guess, that we would see this type of behavior. If you're anybody from the left, you can get away with a lot more than anybody from the right. And I'll give you a perfect example. Me and Doc talked about this. There was a kid who was a black kid and went to school, shot students up. He was arrested on that day. And by the end of the day, he was already out on bail and he went back to school on Monday. And I was like, how is this possible? You know, this kid shot up the school. They threw him in jail. He was out on bail that evening. They threw a party for him when he got home, and then he was back in school. Why didn't the school expel this kid? Do you see the issue here? Yeah, the hypocrisy is thick. It's just, if you're a kid who doesn't fit their profile, they're not going to push no agenda against you. Anybody else can walk away. And let me tell you how this fits kind of in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Barnes, the lawyer, pointed out that during the days of the KKK, what the organization did with working with other politicians is they identified criminals who were busted for aggressive crimes, you know, battery, assault, domestic violence, and they would make sure that those people were not in jail, and they pushed them into the organization, telling them, hey, you guys have the ability to do all those things. You want to assault people, you want to commit crimes, you could do it under this umbrella and get away with it. So these different organizations that are behind these riots and protests, what they're doing is they're allowing these criminals out of jail, and then they're recruiting them into these groups and allowing these psycho or sociopaths to go out there and get away with all kinds of crimes as long as they push the left agenda.
Well, that's that sounds just about right. What is I found really disconcerting is I happened to come across an article in the Chicago Tribune that was August 17th about this situation. The parents of a man fatally shot during last summer's violent demonstrations in Kenosha sued authorities alleging they incited bloodshed by allowing Kyle Rittenhouse and other armed civilians who clashed with protesters. The federal lawsuit filed in Milwaukee on behalf of Anthony Hoover's estate seeks unspecified damages against Kenosha County Sheriff David Beth, David Meninkus, the former city of Kenosha's police chief, and Eric Larson, the city's acting police chief, as well as unnamed officers and deputies. So I find it fascinating considering we saw the footage, whether it was the drone footage or video footage from across the street that showed how Kyle was chased down and everything else, that they are suing. They are suing all the police, the law enforcement, various law enforcement there for this. So it's like they're trying to get ahead of the narrative.
No, they are. And the trial that you're talking about, the people involved are also part of the group that help organize what happened with Kyle Rittenhouse. I mean, he goes into details. I don't want to get on here and promote anybody's video, but when I did send you a link to that one, you have to check it out. This guy breaks it down in detail. He brought up the whole, what they did with the KKK and what they're now doing with these different communist groups. We could see blue states letting out criminals with these, they say they're minor offenses, but what are they? Rape, robbery, armed robbery, you know what I mean? Assault. They're letting these criminals out, and these criminals are now being recruited into these organizations the same way that happened way back in the 20s and 30s.
Didn't you send over a link of talking about all the various infractions that the prosecution was doing?
Well, so it's not just the individuals out there involved in the protest, but he also brought up the fact that prosecutors all around the country, if they are going after somebody that they perceive to be a perfect example of who we want to go after, somebody from the right, like Kyle exercising his Second Amendment, whether you believe in it or not, you know what I mean? That's a person they want to go after. So prosecutors are willing to violate the law at all levels, knowing that nothing's going to happen to them. So Barnes lays it out in detail what the laws that prosecution violated in their attempt to try to prosecute Kyle Rittenhouse. We do have a clip. Dan, can you play that clip, please?
I've filed mistrial motions before, and they're broad, long, and extensive, and detailed. And so, you know, you cite the law, you find analogous cases where other courts have done what you're requesting they do on comparable facts, and then you cite all of the evidence. I mean, it's not just what he's done in parts of the issues they cite. The prosecutor is also, you know, he's been lying about Kyle and created the pretrial prejudice with defamatory statements using the cover of courtroom privilege to make the false statements in the guise of bail issues, in the guise of evidence issues, in the guise of pretrial issues. That was level one of his misconduct. Level two is withholding documents, withholding information, delaying disclosure of information, all the way through, including the FBI video and the HD video of the FBI that magically went missing, that purportedly didn't know how it went missing. Then during trial, it came out that he had attempted to suborn perjury. I believe he did suborn perjury with certain witness testimony, that he had effectively obstructed justice, in my view, his manipulation of criminal charges of other co-defendants, hid the fact that he knew who Jump Kick Man was, that kept Jump Kick Man from testifying effectively by not granting him immunity and having criminal charges stay outstanding against him without disclosing the information and the details about Jump Kick Man, and then engaged in Fifth Amendment violations and clear pretrial court orders during his cross-examination of Kyle, on top of making repeated misstatements of fact or misstatements of law, both in his opening statement and particularly and perniciously in his closing argument. And then now this last piece of evidence that they withheld critical, essential material evidence appeared to have doctored the timeline to make it look like they weren't responsible or accountable for this, for the failure to produce the HD version of the video.
So you have two things. You hear him say Jump Kick Man. So there's a couple of people in the video that would have easily helped Kyle in his trial. The prosecution knew who they were. They lied. Not only did they lie about their identity, saying they didn't know, but they have these two people on other pending trials. They're being prosecuted for crimes. So they delayed their trial until after this one, just in case they were pulled to court, pressuring them to push a certain narrative. And if they didn't, then later on, when they went to court, they would go after them with the full extent of the law, is what Barnes is going on to say. So they know who Yellow Pants Man is. They know who, Jump Kick Man is. Unfortunately, that's the name you have to call them because I don't believe we know yet who the real identity is, although somebody said one of the news agencies did identify who Jump Kick Man is. These are people that could have helped Kyle in this trial. Prosecution knew who they were. Not only did they hold that information and their identity from the defense, but they also held the trials, other pending trials against those two, delayed until after this trial, just in case, so they could hold it above their heads. That's what this Barnes has found out. Now, for those who don't know what Barnes' law is, they are part of Kyle's, or they were part of Kyle's defense. So now they can openly speak about certain things. Not everything, as you can imagine, but they can openly speak about a lot of other things that are not being spoken about in the media.
Well, there's a lot of very interesting things going on. And this, quite frankly, in the very beginning should have been thrown out of court, dismissed with prejudice. But for whatever reason, they're continuing moving on. And during that period, on November 16th, there was some suspicious activity going on that came out through the police scanner that between 12 and 1 p.m. Eastern time, a Kenosha officer checked a local alleyway and verified that there are bricks everywhere. And there's an audio that we have on our one article that we have on c-find.com where you can listen to the 1:11 mark, 1 minute and 11 second mark, to hear exactly what that officer has to say. Now, it's like, are they preparing for whatever the verdict is going to be? And they're going to do another, what they did in Kenosha in 2020 that started all this in the first place?
Yes, this is not uncommon. When the so-called Summer of Love, with all the peaceful protests that broke out, a lot of these bricks were found in different cities. They were pre-laid out. You had full butane tanks. You had, them small 1 gallon, 5 gallon gasoline containers full. You had bricks and rocks laid out. They were organized. And this was done right before the riots. So the riots are planned. They're pre-planned and they're organized. And what you're finding is, we blame Black Lives Matter, and I'm sure they have something to do with it. But what's happened is they're being infiltrated by these communist groups that are going out there disguising themselves, and like Antifa is a perfect one, disguising themselves as people from the BLM. And then they're doing all this damage. They keep themselves really dressed up. They try to hide their identity, and they organize it. And then they infiltrate other groups, and then they cause all the civil unrest like we see it, the riots, the burning of buildings, you know what I mean? All the aggressive stuff. One thing that was brought up about by Barnes was one of the people that they're trying to identify had a gun in his hand. And what they did was, when him and Kyle ran into each other, Kyle got him to put his gun down. But when Kyle left, the guy took the gun, shot up twice in the air, started running towards Kyle's. Kyle's running away, yelling out, "Kyle shot innocent people," so that people would turn on Kyle. And that's what happened. They started chasing him. So when you're in that mob mentality and you hear gunshots, and then you see somebody running with a gun and everybody's yelling, "Hey, that guy just shot some innocent people." Well, the mob doesn't know any better. So they started chasing after Kyle. So that's a huge part of what we saw. So it's things like that that's being left out of these media reports, that's not being talked about. So the organization of these riots, putting the rocks out there, putting the gas tanks out there, the misconduct by prosecutors, knowing that nothing's ever going to happen to them, the lying about evidence, the hiding of witnesses. So if we're getting to the point now that if you go to trial for any reason, if people dig through your social media post and you appear to be somebody who favors anything from the right, you can expect a much more severe attack by the prosecution and a much more severe sentence for whatever you're being tried for. It's just really sad. And we've seen that from the January 6th so-called insurrectionists.
Well, it is the mob mentality that starts to raise up after a bit, and it's inciting a riot. And one thing I found interesting, Pimpy, is all these bricks, those are not cheap to be had. Those are incredibly expensive, especially now that there is a lack of building materials because of shortages and so on. And these all maintain to be unclaimed. Well, hey, if there's all these bricks going on around town and they're unclaimed, why aren't people like around Kenosha gathering up building materials for any projects that they may have around home? I mean, seriously, there's not going to be anyone that claims those bricks, because that's basically letting the cat out of the bag, so to speak, about exactly what is going on, and it's been pre-planned, and it also lets people know who owns them, which there is the finger pointed right there.
Yeah, so, this has happened many times and throughout multiple cities during the summer of love, so to speak. You know what I mean? So it's well organized. And the person that's really behind this has $18 billion. So a bunch of bricks taken away or gasoline containers confiscated doesn't hurt him one bit. So, it's not surprising if you're trying to push an agenda and you're trying to control the system and control the masses. Doing these types of stunts work. Here's something that people should be asking themselves, knowing all the publicity, all the public attention on Kyle's trial. Why is the judge allowing anybody near the courthouse? These people were outside the courthouse where the jurors were with megaphones, yelling out, screaming stuff. That's influencing the jurors during the decision making. That whole city should have been blocked off for blocks away from the courthouse, and no protesters allowed there. So, this whole trial is very questionable. They're gun-ho on finding one way or another, no matter how innocent Kyle is, to make him an example, just like they did that couple. I can't think of their names that brought the guns out when they were doing vandalizing people's places. Remember the couple that came out with the guns?
Yeah, I believe that was in Maryland, or was Washington, D.C.
Yeah, they went after them with they threw the book at these people. And what they're trying to, and then they put in the media, what they're trying to do is say to those individuals who think the same way they do, and that is exercising your constitutional rights. If you dare exercise your constitutional rights, then this is what's going to happen to you. So don't dare exercise your constitutional rights, because we'll violate the laws and get away with it. And we'll find a way, one way or another, to...
It's intimidation practices.
Yeah,
that's
exactly what it is.
We need to go ahead and stop for our break right here. And we're going to hear a word from our sponsor. This is Linda Forsythe, here with my co-host Pimpy on AM590 KTIE.
What is CVINE anyway? The acronym CVINE stands for Community Voices, Investigations, News, and Education. CVINE is a grassroots collection of people from all walks of life, skills, and talents, banding together to heal our community. As a group of law enforcement, retired military, accountants, teachers, doctors, nurses, clergy, stay-at-home moms, or the local construction worker, CVINE donates their time where needed. It is we the people who built America from generations of blood, sweat, and tears. CVINE creates teams to tackle work where it is needed. All volunteers have their own businesses or personal lives, but donate their time in an area they have experience and skills. The news portion of CVINE investigates existing news stories by licensed investigators. CVINE journalists report the news live on social media. CVINE also has commentary and analysis recorded on AM radio. Watch for news teams now being formed in the education sector called Project Mayberry, coming very soon. Visit the cvine.com website, become a member, and sign up for CVINE's newsletter. That's c-vine.com, c-vine.com.
Sometimes the infirmities of old age cause loved ones to lose their ability to comprehend what's happening about them. If estate planning documents are in place, the person named takes charge and makes decisions on behalf of the incapacitated relative. But suppose the loved one never took time to have those documents prepared. Hi, I'm Ron Osk from the Elder Law Center. I'd like to talk to you about conservatorships and how families can implement them. Sometimes meddling relatives cause discord among next of kin, making decisions on behalf of aged seniors extremely difficult. That's when the course of action becomes a conservatorship. Conservatorships create authority over the loved one's assets, income, and expenses, and provide the power to determine the residence of the senior and, typically, make medical decisions. For over 20 years, the Elder Law Center has been helping families work through these difficult situations. For a free consultation and our contact information, please visit our website, elderlawcenter.net. That's elderlawcenter.net. And thanks for listening.
AM590, The Answer.
Welcome back to Seavine, We the People on KTIE AM 590. I'm Linda Forsythe, and I'm having a great conversation here with my co-host, Pimpy. Pimpy, you were bringing up an excellent point about the couple that stood in front of their home and did not even fire anything, but they were being overrun by a mob. Why don't you talk about that a little bit? Who was that and what was the situation?
Here's the thing. Remember, Barnes just laid out a lot of violations of the law by the prosecutors in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Now, here's another thing. The prosecutors against that couple, are you ready for this? One of the guns they told him was not even operational, but during their trial, it magically was fixed and now operational. And when we did a little digging, what did we find out? Well, it was the prosecutors that went ahead and had the gun looked at and then fixed so it looked operational. This is the type of behavior that we're seeing everywhere.
It's being manipulated, which is really, really sad. You know, what's really came out today is Thursday when we are taping this show, which is November 18th, and it came out today that, well, you know, I'm going to have Dan go ahead and play that clip, but it has to do with the Rittenhouse trial. They were basically doing jury intimidation, the mainstream.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You want to play that clip from the judge?
Let's hear it.
Last evening, a person who identified himself as James G. Morrison and who claimed that he was a producer with NBC News, employed for MSNBC, and under the supervision of a person, what's going on? Oh, okay. Under the supervision of someone named Irene Bayan in New York for MSNBC. The police, when they stopped him because he was following at a distance of about a block and went through a red light, pulled him over and inquired of him what was going on, and he gave that information and stated that he had been instructed by Ms. Bayan in New York to follow the jury bus. The matter is under further investigation at this point, and the media has asked questions about it. That's the latest I have. And he was ticketed for violating a traffic control signal. He's not here today from what I'm told, and I have instructed that no one from MSNBC News will be permitted in this building for the duration of this trial.
Going from there, as such, Judge Schroeder banned MSNBC from the courtroom, which is as it should be. But the individual who followed the bus identified himself to police as James Morrison, as the judge said. And he reportedly said that he was following the bus at the instruction of Irene Bayan, who is the producer of NBC in New York. And interestingly enough, Irene Bayan has deleted all of her social media accounts since being named.
Yeah, so look here, the media is not only complicit in this, but they're actually active participants in this agenda. I got a question for you, Linda. When did it start becoming okay for body cam from the police officers, the body cam videos? When the heck did it become okay for them to start releasing it to the media before an investigation is done. The media then gets the body cam footage, and then they create already a biased narrative before people even end up in court. Why aren't the police officers holding on to those videos until after an investigation is completed? They're already taking it to the media. This never was done before. It just recently started happening. It's creating a real biased narrative.
It's not only biased, but it is basically trial by media. And it's inciting insurrection and a thought process by not allowing due process of law to present evidence from both sides and having a jury of your peers being the decision maker on after hearing all edges and situations of a particular case is the way it is supposed to be. But now they're basically giving so much power to mainstream media to be able to sway opinions in whatever which way they choose to do so, which, by the way, is one of the things that they said the jurors were concerned about, is if they vote to acquit or to, whatever the case is, their names are going to get out through the media.
Of course they are.
And everything else, and then their lives are in danger.
Yes,
now,
that's what its focus. I should say that is the whole purpose of this. And so the media, but not just that, they also know that individuals will take clips, clickbait, whatever it is that the media gives them, and then share them on social media platforms. Social media platforms, in addition to the media, is making it impossible for individuals to have fair and unbiased trials. Because if the media wants to push a bias, or if they really want to target somebody, we see this playing out in all these high-profile cases, which they take selective evidence, edit it to fit their narrative, play it. The social media platforms take control of it. They put it out there with their opinions. They have now corrupted the minds of individuals. There's no way it's possible for anybody to have a fair trial. And nothing is being done about it at all. Nothing by our politicians, that's for sure. Why aren't courts, why aren't judges doing something about this, saying, look, this kid's going to be acquitted, or this individual is going to be acquitted, because there's no way for anybody to get a fair trial. In addition, what we're also seeing by prosecution, Linda, that I think you're going to find interesting, whenever they feel they're getting ready to lose a case, they'll continue to do actions within the court to try to get a mistrial without prejudice. Is that right? So they can redo the trial and fix their mistakes and go at it again.
Well, that is absolutely correct. I was just trying to find something here. It was a statement by Candace Owens. She says, I'm literally getting messages from Black people telling me that defending Kyle Rittenhouse makes me a traitor to my race. I just cannot comprehend this level of stupidity. So they're trying to make this about race. They are doing anything and everything to incite a riot. That's why Black Lives Matter was standing out front. That is why all this stuff is going on. And it's going to be interesting to see, no matter which way this turns, heaven forbid, this turns violent and we have another, I don't know, saga of all these
Summer of Love
and so on going on. Yeah, I am going to be clearly watching to see if Sheriff David Beth steps up. Remember that name, Sheriff David Beth. Kenosha County should be having many things in place. A lot of this stuff should not have been happening in the first place.
Yes.
That is going on right now on the steps of that courtroom.
Yep, exactly. But here's something else I wanted to bring up. How come people aren't talking about how overnight, the founders of these organizations are becoming billionaires. How is it that, what's her name, Patrice, one of the founders of BLM, has multiple houses that cost millions of dollars? Where would you get that kind of money from when you were not that rich before? That's because these people are being subsidized to help push this agenda. It's a communist or socialist agenda. We know this, but the media is, again, compromised. And as much as people want to complain about Fox News, and I don't trust any media, but Fox News, let's say Tucker Carlson, for the most part, tends to be the sole soldier out there fighting for the truth. And this is why media everywhere is attacking him, calling him a white supremacist. That's the attack now. If you don't help with this agenda, or if you're against this agenda, then you must be a racist. But people are really, they're really getting over this. I'm seeing a lot of even Democrats now going, we're tired of this. We truly are. That's why you're going to see in this up and coming midterm election, just a big lopsided butt kicking, in my opinion, as far as who's getting into office. We see what happened in Virginia. That's a referendum, in my opinion, on what we have coming as far as midterms are concerned. The Democrats are going to get voted out of office. Pelosi's talking about retirement. Butterfield's talking about retirement. These are those old salty dogs that are the biggest reason why we are in the problems that we're having right now in our country.
Well, there's a couple of other interesting things going on. On November 23rd, I believe it is, I don't have the date in front of me, Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, was saying that the Arizona audit results and everything are going in front of the Supreme Court. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, that's, if you remember, Mike Lindell put out that challenge. I forget the exact amount, but it was $5 million, that if anybody can take any of the information that he put out on the social media, the television show, I believe also was on Right Side Broadcasting. If anyone can find and or dispute anything that he puts out there as evidence, he would give them $5 million. But of course, nobody took him up on it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens at the Supreme Court at that time. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we were talking when President Trump congratulated State Representative Tim Rampton, which is a Republican of Wisconsin, on Thursday for presenting a resolution to decertify the 2020 presidential election in Wisconsin. And which again was because of Sheriff Smalling for a large part. There was plenty more. So things seem to be coming to a head in this situation going on in Kenosha County, Wisconsin. Again, interesting, it's all in Wisconsin. I'm wondering how much they are pushing and making this more about look over here, not over there.
You know, we have, again, midterms coming up. We see a panic and desperation, in my opinion, by the Democrats to push as much of these agendas across, get them voted on, you know, as quickly as possible. But the one that they're really pushing for is their voting bill, the John Lewis. I love how they do that. Therefore, if you speak out against it, it's because you're racist, because it's named John Lewis. It has nothing to do with the voting. You know, they grab an individual, put them on there. This way, if you speak against it, then you're racist. But anyways, they want to push these new voting laws that really take the power away from the states and put it in the hands of the feds and how we vote, keeping the Democrats in power for, you know, forever. So people have to really dig into that.
Well, things are definitely coming to a head in a lot of ways. And you know, something's got to happen here in a positive way very soon, because this is past the point of ridiculous. We're losing our country. That being said, I was going to ask you, Pimpy, for you to give us an update, because we have about 8 minutes left here, about your what you've been noticing, what's going on with gold and silver and Bitcoin and that type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, gold and silver, you know, it's a safe haven. It's a way for people to protect their nest egg, their retirements, their savings. I've spoken about that before. but we know that the market is it's very manipulated. You know, there are individuals who have, well, let me put it to you this way. Gold is the enemy of the fiat dollar. So if countries are trying to protect their fiat dollar, then they automatically have to find a way to manipulate gold because people know that gold is a safe haven. Since 1913, the US fiat dollar has lost more than 98% of its purchasing power, where gold has lost none of its purchasing power. So that kind of threat to the US dollar, in which we know the US dollar is manipulated as well. So we know our gold and silver markets are being manipulated, but you can only manipulate it for so long. It's like holding a ball underwater. Eventually you have to let go and it's going to pop up. But right now we're being lied to about our inflation rates. It's not around 6%. It's actually at 12%. So we're being lied to about that. The bond bubble, real estate bubble, the stock bubble, there's so many bubbles out there and it's worldwide, are getting ready to bust. So if you don't have gold and silver in your possession, it could really affect your savings because the death of the dollar is what people keep talking about. I'm telling people it's already dead. You just don't know it. So everybody go back and look at what happened in 2008. People lost their nest egg. People were retired. I bring this up all the time. When the stock market crashed and a lot of your 401ks are invested into paper fiat, in other words, stock. So if the stock market crashes, guess what happens to your savings? It goes down. But right now, everybody's like, no, Pimpy, look at Bitcoin, look at, the stock market. These values are shooting up there. I go, yeah, it's not because people are really interested in these risky investments. It's because the value of the dollar is depleting. And if you lose the purchasing power of your dollar, it makes other things look valuable. It's not. So you need more dollars to buy a house. Therefore, it makes the house look like it's really valuable because of the high dollar values. This stock over here looks really valuable. Why is Tesla worth so much? They're not, people. It's just that their purchasing power of the dollar has been so depleted that these things appear to be valuable. They're not. Again,
Pimpy,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you that a lot of people have been asking me this, and I figure you'd be a good person to ask. A lot of people think that we're going to be going over to the gold standard. And with that being said, when we look back on what happened during the Civil War, what was it that the money from the South basically had zero value after that was lost?
Well, they had their own money. Remember, they created their own dollars. As a matter of fact, as a collector, the Confederates had their own dollars. So, of course, that has zero value. It's not the same as the ones we use on the opposite side. But the dollar, there is no value in the dollar. The government knows this, but they're going to try to keep us afloat as much as possible. So they prepare themselves for that. What people should do is, here's what I always tell people, forget what the media is telling us, forget what the news is telling us. So when you hear people like JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs coming out there saying stuff like, oh, gold is not a good investment, the dollar is sizzling. No, watch what they do, not what they say. You notice what they're doing is their central banks around the world, you can look this up, are buying up as much gold as possible. They know what's coming. So I tell people, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. And then you should be doing the same thing. So if you have billionaires, millionaires, central banks, these financial institutions buying up gold everywhere, it's because they know that the dollar has no value and they're moving into smart money. Smart money is gold. You should have it. Many people don't think they can afford it, but you'd be surprised. You don't have to buy a full ounce, which a full ounce right now is about $1,850. You go buy what's called fractional. So you can buy a gram's worth for like $80. So this means anybody can own gold. Now, having said that, every now and then we have to do what's called a revaluation. Our GDP is about 145%, the debt to GDP I'm talking about. In order for them to even raise interest rates, they're going to have to bring it down to around 70% debt to GDP. The only way you're going to be able to do that is by revaluing gold. You have to have gold. The value of gold is going to be reevaluated. We've been forecasting that it's going to be somewhere around $10,000 an ounce. So that little gram you spend $80 for could become several $100s once the revaluation takes place. It's inevitable. Are we going back to the gold standard? We need to. But what I think they're trying to do is buy as much time as possible before they force us into the CBDC, which is the central bank's digital currency, which is just a digital fiat dollar that they control, and they control 100%. And what I mean by that is, if you're a person who didn't get the jab and they find out, they'll cut your money off and tell you can't have it until you go get the jab. Do you really want our government having that kind of control over you? No. So you have to be outside of the system. And how do you get outside of the system? You need gold and silver. That's what we do.
So can you purchase, let's say silver, like silver dimes and silver dollars and this type of thing? So you're talking about being outside of the system. You actually have hard copy coins, so to speak, to be able to.
You want to possess the coins. You want to have physical possession. It's crazy how many people are not aware that you can buy gold and silver. They're unaware of it. You can buy and own. That means physically have it in your possession, gold and silver. I do. I have a ton of it. So you can have gold and silver, and you don't have to buy them by the ounces. You can buy smaller versions. Although silver is known as the poor man's gold, that's because silver is very affordable. You can buy an ounce right now. The premiums are kind of high, but somewhere around $32, $33 an ounce. It's important for you. Besides, the premiums, trust me, in the long run, aren't going to be anything compared to what the real value of silver is going to end up being. We all know the value of gold and silver is being drastically suppressed. And eventually, the real value is going to pop up, and it's going to happen here real soon.
Is that why they're taking all this? All of a sudden, there's a coin shortage. How can that happen? That doesn't make any sense to me.
So the coins, they did a trial run. Remember that here in California, where they said, hey, you went to the stores, they go, well, there's no coins, there's no money. I said, well, that was a trial run for the CBDC to see how many people they could get to get in a habit of using their ATM cards. They want you to get in a habit of using cards by lying to you, saying there's a coin shortage. Everybody that deals in coin collecting, we know that's not true. Anybody that deals in gold and silver, we know there is no shortage of coins. That was a lie. They're just doing a test run so they can prepare us for the central bank digital currency that's coming up.
Oh, wow. Well, that's something definitely to keep in mind. Well, everybody, we've come to the end of our show today. This is Linda Forsythe here with my co-host, Pimpy, on AM590 KTIE. Good day, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Have a good day.
Sheriff Mack is reaching out to all Americans to support their local sheriff by joining the Constitutional Sheriff and Peace Officers Association. This is Linda Forsythe. Sheriff Mack founded this organization to educate the public and support all local sheriffs in our nation. Now, more than ever, our citizens must be able to recognize how a constitutional sheriff acts. Even though all sheriffs take an oath of office to defend our country against enemies, both foreign and domestic, some haven't followed through with that oath. Now is the time to shine a light. Which ones are protecting the people who elected them in their county against illegal constitutional mandates or violent behavior? Your sheriff cannot be told to stand down by any government authority because they were elected by we the people. Citizens and their local sheriff are the last line of defense against tyranny. Sign up for free email updates and alerts at cspoa.org or become a member of the posse for $11 a month. Go to cspoa.org. That's cspoa.org for Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association.